Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Wtsr Tokyo Studio Radio. I am your host, Elbow. Today, we have the pleasure of having the one and only Eusheen Goins with us today. Thank you for coming on the show, Eusheen.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be out here in Tokyo.
How long have you been in town for now?
It's been 3 weeks, actually. It's been an amazing trip.
What were you doing before?
I went up to Hokkaido and went snowboarding in Niseko, and then I went to Asahikawa for a free ride tour.
What is that? I don't even know.
There's this company called Mint Tours, and they guide these free ride tours to a bunch of resorts that they've kind of curated and gone, and it's all lift access. So you're not riding like backcountry. You're just riding inbounds mostly, maybe a little bit of side country, but you're riding, powder the whole time. That's the goal, is to ride as much powder as possible. And I definitely got that.
Didn't you take a helicopter?
Oh, yeah, I did that out in Niseko. I did the helicopter tour with that was in Niseko, yeah. That was a one-day thing, and it's like $1,800 for 8 runs, basically.
Was it sick, though? Was it worth it?
Well, worth it. I mean, you get first tracks and 8 helicopter rides at the top of the mountain, and 2 guides. You have a tail guide and a front guide. And my friend Peter Biskin, who's Nady Biskin, also known as Nady Love, his brother Peter is a guide in Hokkaido, and he guides for the company that has the helicopter. They're called the Hokkaido Backcountry Club.
Oh, sick.
They're super sick. It's the only helicopter operation in Japan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the only one.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's ballin'.
Yeah. It's actually as funny as it is, back in 2020, before COVID hit, I did a helicopter tour, and it was my first time ever doing it in Japan, which is funny that I never did it in America. I had lots of chances, but just never felt like pulling the trigger, but because it's expensive. And yeah.
That's why. Is it more expensive in America, do you think, than in...
It's about the same. I want to say it's a little more expensive actually in Japan because...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
What do you think about the powder? Who has more powder?
Japan, just because there's less people there, and so that means less tracks. And so you can ride the resort and get fresh tracks way more than you can in, like, you could come the day after a storm when everybody rode the day before on the storm day and still get first tracks down stuff. Whereas like in America, the first hour at Vail, everything's tracked out after 1 hour of the resort being open. So it's just, you're not on that powder scramble like you are in America, where you're like, fuck, I gotta get the powder. I gotta fucking get there now. And you're just like waking up hella early, trying to catch first chair so you can get one run that's untracked, but probably not untracked, because there's people that in the morning, they skin up and hit it before anybody else. They'll wake up at like 3 a.m. and walk up the mountain so they can get firsties.
Wow.
Yeah. Like as soon as the sun comes up, they're like, I'm dropping. That's how crazy it is with powder in America. So like coming to Japan is a special experience.
Damn, I mean, it seems special. I saw the stories on Instagram. It looked pretty awesome. Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh,
that was a birthday
happy birthday
trip.
to you too,
Thank
dude.
you.
Yeah,
birthday boys. I mean, it's a little late now, kind of. It's February.
It is a little late, but hey, not that late.
Yeah.
So yours was only the 21st, right?
Yeah.
And mine was the 3rd,
Yeah.
so mine was a while ago, but yeah.
Well, let's get down to brass tacks. I really want to talk today about where you started from. We talked a little bit in Studio Morio recently about where you started from, and it's just a really interesting story. And then I also want to talk about just the first time you came out to Japan, and essentially what the road that brought you here today, on this trip out here. And I know this isn't your first trip out here. How many times have you been out here?
I want to say that this is my 5th or 6th time out here.
That's a lot. That's a lot of times to come to Japan.
Yeah, I mean, I love Japan. It's probably my favorite country to visit.
Same.
Yeah.
I need to visit more countries, but I'm currently very happy visiting this one right now.
Yeah.
So when you started, we talked a little bit about it in the studio. You were working in a head shop, right?
Yeah. So
What head shop?
there was it was kind of like a hippie store, and they had a little beaded curtain in the back. It was called the Toadstool. It was in Cave Junction, Oregon, which was about 10 miles from where I was born in Tequila, Oregon. And in 1997, I was trying to get a job there, but I wasn't 18 yet. I was 17. And the owner, who we'll refer to as G-Man, who's the man, I owe everything to this guy for being so generous and getting me into glass. But he said, you can work for me, but you gotta be 18. Because I have this curtain and, I sell pipes in the back. You got to be of age. But it was a skate shop. It was like a hippie store. They sold incense and clothing and culture, basically. Early culture. And I was attracted to that because I was like, this is such a cool store. This is like the coolest store in my town. And I want to work there. And so one day he hit me up and he said, hey, I need your help. One of the other girls can't make it in. And I need somebody to work, so here's a key. And he handed me the key. I pretty much turned 18 like a month before that, and it was my first real job. Ended up working there, and I got turned on to the glass behind the beaded curtain, which was Darby Home, Karsten Carlisle, and Wtsr, among some of the artists that I first was exposed to.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite the lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, what were the pipes looking like back then? Can you recall some of the ones that kind of wowed you?
I mean, obviously Darby was killing it, and he'd only been on the torch a couple of years at that point.
Really?
And
already
he was
legends.
making, really nicely shaped hammers and Sherlocks, and they were all fumed and, different, he had wigwags in there and different stuff that it was my first time. And then, Ezra's fuming was really cool. He did this standard wall fuming where he would fume, and it was only gold and silver. And then he would melt it really thick. So it would be these really thick pipes with the fume layers imploded really deep, which I thought was really dope. That's kind of a really nice old school flavor.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's why I love those old school pipes. I mean, what year was that though?
That was 97. Yeah.
I definitely had not stepped into a head shop yet.
But maybe you saw some pipes on lot or something?
98. I think 98 was
okay.
the first time I ever seen a quote heady pipe.
Mm. Yeah, I'd seen some before that because in high school, a couple of my buddies were actually going over to the studio where Darby and Carson worked and watching them work. And we were in high school, so we were I didn't ever make it to that studio then, but they would always come to school and be like, we went to this glass shop and saw saw these guys melting glass, and I got a pipe, and my friend, his name is Yasana. His parents were Rastafarians. And
that's sick.
Really cool family. His stepdad, his name was Ja Levi, and they had a recording studio that was all solar powered at their house.
Oh, that's sick.
And he owned the first pipe that I ever saw, that glass pipe. And we smoked out of it when I was in high school.
That's sick. That's a great memory.
Yeah.
So what about the first time that you started blowing glass? I know you're working at the head shop. You seen glass. You were intrigued. When did you see it? When did you realize you wanted to try to do it?
So in 1998, G-Man decided to move the studio from Cave Junction to Grants Pass, which was a bigger town. And he started a glass blowing shop that was separate from the store. So he got a new storefront that was 3 times bigger. And then he got this glass shop called Studio G. And I would go there and watch some of the homies work. Actually, the first homie I ever saw work was Mike Luna. And I actually went to high school with Mike Luna. We used to ride the bus together and stuff back.
That's so sick. Mike Luna's
95 or something.
Great artist.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I think I was a sophomore. I dropped out of high school when I was a sophomore, so it was like my freshman and sophomore year where when I was going to school with Mike Luna. And I just really jived with Mike Luna. He just had a different mindset because he was from LA. And I liked how he thought of, I just liked his whole approach to the world so much more than the other kids in that school. Because the other kids were really closed-minded and kind of uninformed, I guess. And I was from a small town, but like was exposed to a lot of culture early on because my mom and dad being total hippies just exposed me to so much more. Yeah. And so ended up watching Mike work at that studio a few different times. And then one day found myself out at a studio in Cave Junction across from my grandma's house, just a little bit outside of Cave Junction. And there's this guy, he goes by Pyro now, and he was working at this studio, little garage. It was like a dirt floor in there, and like it was just this garage. And I was in there watching him. I randomly ended up there, and I was watching him work, and I was like, hey, can I try making a pipe? And they were like, yeah, go ahead. Hop on that torch over there. And I didn't even know how to light a torch. But I'd seen Mike Luna do it, and I was like, I could figure this out. So I just like cracked the torch on and started. There was a pulled point that was sitting there that was somebody else's, and I was like, hey, can I use this? And I just started like trying to make a pipe like I saw Mike Luna do it. It took me 3 tries.
Nice.
And then my third try, I made this janky little thing that barely worked, but I wish I still had it, but I don't have it.
You don't know who has it?
It broke, I think. I gave it to one of the homies, and because I don't know, I loved glass. I mean, as soon as I melted it, I was shaking. I was so excited. I was like, wow, I didn't think I was going to like this that much. Because I remember thinking about glass being like, I worked at the smoke shop. I didn't care about learning glass. I just wanted to learn like how it was done so I could explain to customers like, oh, this is how this piece was made. And then this is how, this other piece was made. They used this technique. And I thought learning the techniques would just help me sell stuff better. And that was the goal. But then it turned into this other thing. And I kind of thought I was too late coming in, which is really funny because it was like 2000. And I thought it was late coming in because like there was a huge, renaissance of glass blowers coming up at that time. And, there was a saying that everybody and their mother is learning to blow glass right now. And
isn't that crazy to think that you thought you were early? Or you thought you were too late.
I thought it was too late.
In 2000.
Yeah, I know. And but then when I tried it, I was just blown away, like the flame and I'm kind of a pyromaniac in a way. Like I always enjoyed fire. I liked making fires, like because we had a wood stove as a kid, so I liked to build a fire. I just had this attraction to fire. And then when I was like, damn, I could just melt glass. And like then I started to realize with literally a couple months in that, damn, this could be my job. And I started working less at the smoke shop. And by 2001, I was pretty much blowing glass full time. My brother, Shen Goins, started blowing glass a couple months after me and really enjoyed it as well. Yeah.
Are we having a technical difficulty over there? What's going on? You need me to hit the middle one real quick? Yeah. Okay. Let's just take 1 second. Just 1 second. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Elbow. We're back. WTSR, Tokyo Studio Radio. So yeah, Eusheen, you're saying that you fell in love with glass and you realized you could do it, full time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like 2001 when I really realized it. I realized it after a couple months. I was like, I don't want to do anything but glass. And it was funny because G-Man, he saw how interested we were, me and my brother, and he was like, you guys can't work full time. He's like, Yush, I need you in the glass. I need you in the smoke shop.
Yeah.
Like I need you to keep working. So I kept working there, and I did both, and but I started spending more and more time, and I didn't have anywhere to live, so I ended up living in this there's a studio apartment that was above I don't know if I would call it an apartment. It was a bedroom with a bathroom that was above the studio. And there were like 6 of us living up there. Mike Luna's brother, Mike Luna's brother's girlfriend at the time, Shen, and me.
Holy shit.
We were all living up there. And it was ridiculous. I mean, we just didn't have anywhere else to go. And we actually ended up staying with some other homies too that lived nearby. And we made it work. And then we were only at that studio like a year or maybe 2 years. And then, yeah, I think it was 2 years. And then we moved the studio to a bigger spot. And yeah, it was way nicer, way more room. Ended up finding a place to rent and work there. I pretty much worked there the first 5 years of glass at Studio G. And I wouldn't have been able to make it happen without G-Man because he bought the torches, he bought all the glass, he bought everything. All he wanted was for us to make pieces that he could sell. And so he would buy my pieces and resell them on the wholesale market. So he's like wholesaling my glass. So I was giving him really good deal because obviously he paid for everything. Yeah. And I was getting like a free education because there were there was Mike Luna in that studio. There was a whole bunch of other guys that were really good already that had started many years before I ever got into it. So I had a bunch of OG guys, and I don't think any of them really blow glass anymore except for this one homie. His name is Josh Goins. He has the same last name as me. So crazy. We went to high school together, and he actually he's pretty good glass blower. He lives out in Cave Junction. Oh, nice. And he's getting back into glass again. He kind of took a break for a while. But
what's his Instagram?
Trying to remember. Crondog.
Crondog.
I think it's spelled with a K. Yeah.
What's up, bro?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yo, so when did you first link up with Darby? Now that you're blowing glass, when did you link up with
so right after I started blowing glass at Studio G, pretty much Mike Luna was getting really good, and Darby kind of took Mike Luna under his wing and was showing Mike all kinds of techniques every day, bringing him over to his studio. And then I think about after maybe 6 months of me finally getting my feet under me with glass a little bit, G-Man was like, yo, I'm going to pay for a private lesson with Darby for you. And that was my first time ever going over to Darby's studio. Was, year 2000, probably like June, something like that. I went over to his shop in Grants Pass, and he just let me watch and hang out and ask questions. And he was just working on some pieces. And
wow.
Yeah, Gilbert G-Man, he was like, yo, I want you to learn how to make slides because I need slides. And so, like, Darby's going to show you how to make slides. You got to make me slides. And so that was what the purpose of it. But I saw Darby working on, like, a full bong. Yeah. And I was super inspired. And so pretty early on, I started trying to make bongs, like, by hand, no lathe.
Is that how he was doing it?
Oh, yeah. He was killing it.
Boss.
Like, boss life.
Still
yeah.
is.
He was making tubes like 2 foot tall, all by hand.
Jesus.
Perfect parts and everything. Like, he was pretty much he was such a G even back then. Like, you'd think that he'd been on the torch for 10 years.
Wow.
Like, and he'd only been on the torch a couple years. But he was just, I don't know, he just had that. And that's how Mike was too. But those guys were both so generous to me early on, sharing techniques. I remember because Mike was a lot better than me, he would get invited into other people's studios. Like we went to this hemp fest thing up in Eugene. First year I went was 2000, summer 2000. I ended up seeing like Scott Deppy, Ham, whole bunch of Marcel Braun, a whole bunch of glassblowers there. And I was just like, I had this spoon pipe. That was like all I had. I was like, yeah, I got a spoon pipe. I just started. And I was looking at all this stuff. But like crazy as it was, like I think that Scott Deppy had only been on the torch like 8 months. But he had already made this like aquatic, like underwater pipe thing, bubbler. It was like this big and it was freaking crazy. And he's like, he just had that, I don't know. I mean, obviously he's Scott Deppie, you know, like he's just such a G as well.
Yeah.
Just had already been doing some kind of art before that. Like I think he was carving or doing something. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that he was already an artistic person in lots of other ways. So like when he got into glass, and that's kind of how Darby was too, I feel like. And that's how Mike Luna was, because Mike Luna was super good at drawing. I remember when we were in high school in art class, he would draw like dragons or like characters or like all the stuff that he makes now. He was like drawing when he was a kid.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's why those guys are still so relevant today in the glass world, like for doing it that long ago, and the fact that they still work in the same studio is kind of crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're the homies. Those guys are like my family. Like Darby and Mike Luna and their whole family. They're really good people, and they're just so generous. They were so generous to me and my brother. Like and Carson too. You know, Carson let us come and watch him all the time while he was working. He was making big old crazy pieces with like huge components, and he would just let us hang out and watch him, and we'd ask him questions, and he'd be like, I'll show you this little. But he always, what I liked about the way that Darby teaches and Karsten was like, they didn't just hand you everything on a silver platter. They like made you think for it and work for it a little bit. Like Darby wasn't just going to show you everything like and give you like a step-by-step demo on everything. He was like,
so then how did he teach, or like
he let you watch. And so that was like, it worked out for me because I'm a really visual learner. If I see something done, I can figure it out kind of. Yeah. So Darby letting me like watch him work was huge. I mean, I ended up going over to his studio, you know, fairly often. And like every time I went over there, he'd be working on some new crazy like dry pipe or some new shape that was just crazy. And I was like, dude, how does he come up with all these ideas? I remember thinking that, and his creative vibe was just like this ooze coming off of him that was just like infectious. Like you were around the guy and you just felt that creative vibe, and you just wanted to be creative too. Yeah. And
I feel that. I
yeah.
still feel that with them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel so when I'm in that studio
With those guys out there, Oregon, I feel that energy. Still.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
That's crazy.
It's still that way. Yeah.
I love that. That's why it's actually similar to the energy out here a little bit in Japan.
Oh, I would agree.
That's why, you know what?
Fast forward from then, right? Okay, this is early 2000s. Now it's 2023. We're in Tokyo right now.
Mm-hmm.
I should preface that me and Eusheen are also studio mates back in Colorado. We've been working next to each other since 2013. And when was the first year that you came out here?
So I ended up meeting Morio, that owns Studio Morio out here. And I met him in Berkeley, California at Revere Glass in 2008. I was teaching a class at Revere, and he came through and visited just for a day. And I think he had one of the other guys with him. I'm not sure who was with him, but I met some of them, and he said, you should come to Japan. And I want you and Nady to come to Japan, Nady Love. And I was like, damn, really? And so Nady Love and I ended up going out in 2010, and I got picked up by Yoshi at the airport. He made a little sign that said, Eusheen Nady. It was so awesome. He shows up with this sign. I'm like, I've never had this kind of treatment coming into a new place, but they rolled out the red carpet for us, and we went to Studio Morio, and that time it was in Kyoto, and the vibe was just crazy. I mean, the food was obviously blowing my mind. Like, Morio was taking us to a new spot every time, and every single spot was just like, holy shit. Like, I remember my dreams like ticked up a bunch when I first came out here. It was like my creative energy like bumped up a notch, and I was like really felt it. I was like, wow, this place is inspiring. And a lot of cool creative things came out of it. I met Yoshi first time, obviously. Ended up teaching a class at Studio Morio with Nady. And then, and then we taught another class out near Tokyo at this place called Glass Mouse. I'm not sure what area it was, but we went and taught another class. There was a studio there, and Morio chaperoned us over to Tokyo, drove us. And we actually did another event too out in Aichi, like a small place down south at this place called Glass Valley. On Halloween, we did a demo. Nady awesome. And I did this demo, and we did a collab piece with a bunch of the Japanese guys. At the time, it was like Yoshi, and there were some other guys that I don't see around anymore that did really cool work back then.
That's what I was going to say. Who were you, besides Yoshi, who were the people that you knew, like, first time coming out? I know you know Morio and Yoshi. Was there any other artists you recall that?
Aquarius.
Oh, nice.
And pretty sure, I'm trying to remember who else. It's so hard to remember back that far. I remember Aquarius just being a funny dude who was just cracks you up every time you hang with him. He knew a lot of like English words. So Yoshi obviously speaks really good English, but like Aquarius knew a lot of the pop culture references.
Souvenir?
He probably knew. No, he knew a lot of funny stuff. That he would say like movie quotes because he watched American movies a lot, and so like randomly he'd say like a Terminator movie reference, like he was like, "I'll be back" or something like that, you know.
He's funny, dude. His work is sick too.
Yeah, I've done several collabs with him over the years. And
his work is so
love
sick.
His stuff. We got to have him out to Studio Morio next time.
Yeah, we should have him on the podcast too.
You should definitely have him on the podcast.
We should have talk on the podcast.
Yeah.
He'd be wild one.
You could have Toyo interview him, so because Japanese, you might have to do it in Japanese. He speaks some English though. You could all be on there maybe.
Yeah. His English is pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel like.
He can hold a conversation.
Yeah.
So
who was the first Japanese artist that you worked with when you first came out here that you made like a pipe with, I guess specifically?
So Yoshi was the first one actually. So after I came out, Yoshi was just kind of, he chaperoned us and hung out with us, and we ended up hanging out with him and did that kind of like everybody at Glass Valley and Aichi did this like tree thing because we didn't know what to make, so we just came up with this idea. We're like, we're gonna make a tree, and then everyone will put a thing on it, like a little cab or one little thing. And so everybody that was there made a little cab, and that was like the first collab. And really I'd have to look at pictures to remember all the artists that were there, but there were several artists that you don't see anymore. But I know that Aquarius was on there and Yoshi was on there, and I think Akio as well. I'm pretty sure Akio. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember who else. It's hard. I have photos, so if you want a photo to sneak into the podcast later, I could make that happen.
If he emails us the photo,
yeah,
we will put it on the podcast.
Cool. We could show you the tree thing. What's funny is the demo that we did was on Halloween, and everybody was dressed up. And one of the dudes who I can't remember, he did kind of like Gateson-inspired marbles. So he wore a NASA suit, and he was like blowing glass in this NASA suit. And
that's so sick.
People really celebrate Halloween out here. It was fun.
Halloween is a huge celebration out here.
Actually, I was here with Nathan Myers and Avatar and a bunch of people on
Halloween once, and I couldn't believe how it was out here.
Yeah.
So
this was 2010, right? First time.
2010, first time.
When was the second trip? Like,
how long was it after your
There was
first
quite
trip?
a gap between the first trip and the second trip. I mean, obviously the first trip changed my life in a lot of ways. inspired me a ton. While I was out there, I was making belt buckles, and Yoshi was like, "Hey, why don't you make that belt buckle into a pipe?" And he gave me that idea, and that was sort of like, when we started talking about doing a collaboration, and we ended up making like a, Yoshi's first collaboration with an American artist. Shortly after that, I think it was in 2010. Also, might have been 2011, but that all spurred from that first trip out to come work and do those classes. And then my next trip was 2016, which is 6 years later, but a lot changed in those 6 years. A lot changed. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you even remember the first pipe that you made out here? What it was? Do you remember?
Yeah,
what style,
Nady and I made one of our stand-up bubblers, like a big
dog,
big boy. Yeah, we made several stand-up bubblers while we were out here. We made a bunch of them. One of them is still at Morio's studio in the case.
I've
you
seen
can
that
see
one.
It there.
Did you see anybody attempt a large bubbler out here after you did that?
They all worked really small and detailed.
Okay.
And so them seeing us doing the bigger work, and it was crazy for them. And I remember actually when we were working on the tree, we made everybody hold the tree while they put their thing on.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we were like kind of forcing the Japanese guys to go bigger in a way. Yeah.
That's really cool.
And it was pushing them out of their comfort zone. I remember one of them was holding it like, this thing's crazy.
I love that.
I probably have pictures of that. Yeah.
That sounds like a fun class, honestly.
It was really fun. And actually the first time I ever did a double layer Dichro, it was 2 layers of Dichro because Morio only had the thinner Dichro. Then usually we use the thicker stuff. It's twice as thick. But he only had the thinner stuff. So I believe it was like Akio and some of the other guys were cutting it for us into strips so that we could double layer it in the vac stack we were doing. And we ended up doing these double layer vac stack setups that were the tubing that we made in that first class at Morio's was super special. Super, super special tubing. Banging stuff. Actually, Nady, I think, still has a chunk of it that he keeps, and he doesn't know what to use it for because it was 2 layers of purple Dichro over some kind of purple. It might have been hyacinth or something. And it was just this banging purple tubing that we'd never seen before, and did it in Japan. Yeah, first time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then so came back in 2016. I'm
6 years later.
Fast forwarding back here and ended up coming out to work with Yoshi at his studio, at his house, and we made one of my redisculators with but he had made a bunch of his sections, and so we worked for a couple of days at his house, and then we took all the stuff we made there and went up to Studio Morio and finished the piece there.
Oh, nice.
And then
current Studio Morio, or was it?
Yeah, I think it was the current Studio Morio, because in that 6 years between 2010 and 2016, he moved the studio to Wtsr, and that changed everything. It was much bigger space. The old studio was really small, was basically like a hallway with one bench at the end, and there's only enough room for like 2, maybe 3 people to work. And then there's just like color and tools and everything, made this like skinny hallway. But it was amazing. I mean, it was such a cool, and also being in Kyoto was really cool because the food there is, I mean,
I mean, I don't know the food.
Oh,
in
you don't
Kyoto
know?
that well. I only know Wtsr really when it comes to that area.
The food in Kyoto is really more international because it's kind of an international city in a lot of ways, where like people from all kinds of countries live there. It's like a melting pot. I remember the spot we went to, it was like little spot, and then they had like one big long table we all sat at, and it was a Spanish Japanese restaurant fusion. It was so good. It was crazy. It was actually the first time I ever had paella.
was in Japan.
Yeah.
That's funny because I've seen you in Barcelona. I know you've had paella in Barcelona.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Were you skateboarding out here then in 2010, 2016?
I don't think I brought my board with me. It was I might have, but it wasn't about skateboarding. It was about glass that trip. And I have actually in 2016 I did bring my board with me and ended up skating a bunch. And
that's awesome.
I remember I went to a skate park that was not too far away from Studio Morio, and I was skating and I did a 360 flip, and one of the locals saw me do the 360 flip and he called it karu is what he said. I think that's what he said. Is that what it would be? No.
Well, that's what
it was
you
like
remember
double
it as.
flip or something like that is what that meant. That's what I remember anyways, but yeah, they were like, oh, karu. And I was like, wow, crazy. And I was like, and then he was like trying to explain that was like what they called a 360 flip. And I was like, whoa, cool. And every time I've skated out here, it's been fun. Like one time in Osaka, met some locals. They ended up giving me a ride all the way to Nara to go skate the skate park from Osaka, which was like a 2-hour drive. And then skated until like 3 a.m. Then they drove me all the way back to Osaka. And then we had udon noodles. It was like such a fun experience.
What?
The local skateboarder, his name was Slice, and he had a tattoo under his lip that said Slice. Super nice guy. Met him playing darts at the bar in Osaka, and then he was like, "Let's go skate."
You would go somewhere like that.
I was like, "Cool." I was just going with the flow. It was so fun.
I mean, I feel like I always get into like scenarios like that out here. People are so nice.
Yeah.
People are so nice.
So 2016, second time out here. Do you remember when you came out again after that? Was it the same year? Was it 2017?
I came out in 2018,
2018,
2 years later, yeah. And that was also a really amazing trip.
Who'd you work with that trip? Just because at this point now you've only really worked with Yoshi.
No. In
here.
2018 or 2016, I worked with several of the guys. I did a collab with Takao.
Oh, okay.
And I did a collab with Aquarius.
Oh, nice.
And with Yoshi.
Okay.
And trying to remember who
Daisuke?
else. Maybe with Daisuke too. Yeah. It's hard to say. Yeah, there was a lot. I'd have to look at photos, but I worked with a lot of people that trip. 2016. Then 2018, more of the same, just came back and worked with everybody I could work with, did as much as I could do.
Similar list, though, of people.
Yeah.
So in 2010, when you first came out here,
Would you say the pipe scene changed a lot between 2010 to 2016?
Yeah, like it's so much different now than, like, I'd say 2016 was more like how it is today, whereas like 2010 was a totally different era. It was kind of, the work was different. We were making way bigger work. People wanted big bubblers and like flower pieces, and we were just going huge. I was making like upline things that were like 3 feet long and crazy stuff like that. And then, nowadays everybody wants something small that they can carry with them, compact. They want to be able to share it with everybody. That's why our culture is so different, is just because of how compact these pieces are now, how they can be carried anywhere and shared and smoked with all your homies and showed off. It's like, the functional art of it it's unlike anything else. So
do you think specifically, though, in Japan that it changed? Like, because in 2010, you're saying you came out here and Yoshi and Tak were the only 2 artists you could remember at the time that were kind of out and about. Now, you can easily say you probably worked with 8 to 10 Japanese artists that are currently...
And there's so many that don't even go to Studio Morio that are also out here, like Tomomi Honda, and there's a whole other list of guys out here and ladies that are really good with glass.
Do you think that Americans coming out here helped influence them or
A
them
little
in
bit.
making pipes, or do you think it was the other way around, that the Japanese influenced the American artists that came out here, or do you think it was a mutual?
I think it was a mutual thing, but I think that the Japanese influenced America more than America influenced Japan, just because they've been doing what they're doing and they're in their own style. Like the dot work and stuff that they do spread to America so hard. Like you see so many people doing like Yoshi, inspired work, or Rose Rose inspired, Takao inspired stuff. And I think that America was heavily influenced by Japan.
I would agree. I think the detail orientedness of just the culture out here and the glass artists' approach to the art and glass out here, it's influenced me. I've definitely seen it influence American glass culture. I do think that now a lot more Japanese glass artists are interested in making pipes. And I think that
I love seeing like Akio and Daisuke and some of the other guys going big now. And like
big.
That's where
Akio
I think we
goes
did
big.
influence, the Japanese guys somewhat was with that style. But they do their total own thing and they have their own style.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
I mean, I personally find that the collaborations between the Japanese artist and the American artist are my favorite collaborations. Because we're coming from such different cultures, such different backgrounds, but we have this mutual love for the material of glass. We have the mutual love for the subject of pipes, and we're able to come together and bring our cultural backgrounds into one piece, and that piece forever memorializes that moment. And so I feel like when, artists like you are out here, any other glass artists are out here, they're creating these memorial pieces of these cultures coming together. And for me, it's my favorite shit because you've got the detail orientedness. And Americans are detail oriented too. You're a very detail oriented artist.
Well, I was highly influenced by coming to Japan. Like I would say I wanted to be more detailed after I came in 2010. My gears changed. Like right there. I was like, damn, I need to spend more time. I need to go slower. I need to do more detail. Like if I want to get better, if I want to keep evolving, I need to do some new stuff. But I didn't want to copy the Japanese artists. I didn't want to do exactly what they were doing, but I wanted to do something that was inspired by what they did. And that was when I started drawing the flips and stuff like that. I started drawing those right before I came here, but after that, I started doing way more detail with them. I was like, damn, I could do this way tighter than I'm doing it,
Yeah. I feel the same type of inspiration out here, for sure.
My approach is a little bit different. My detail is a bit more fluid than maybe, the very small detail work that the glass artists do out here. But their approach to it is what influences me the most, I'd say.
Yeah, you can't help but be influenced by it. It's you start seeing it and you're like, damn, I wish the rest of the world cared about detail as much as Japanese culture. Right?
Yeah. Is there any art other than glass that you saw out here that inspired you on your travels?
So my first trip out here, I remember going to an art show in Tokyo. After we'd done all the glass, we had a couple of days in Tokyo, and Morio stayed, and I believe Daisuke met up with us actually. And we ended up, Daisuke was the one who took us to this art show. He was like, come check this out.
Oh, shout out Daisuke. I love you.
Shout out Daisuke. And yeah, we went to the show and we were just blown away by like all the art. It was some of the craziest art and design type stuff I'd ever seen. I can't remember the name of the show. I ended up buying this really cool hat when I was there that I had for years and lost it when I was in Costa Rica, unfortunately. But my backpack got stolen. But this hat was made of was recycled kimono fabric, kimono silk.
Oh, I remember that hat.
Yeah, and it was a repeating wave pattern, the Japanese repeating wave pattern. It was like a black and white hat, and this hat was the most comfortable, like 5-panel hat ever. But just the level of craftsmanship, that was just some of the clothing that I saw back then that I was like, damn, they really care about detail. And then I went and saw some of the paintings. I remember this painting I saw. Can't remember the name of the artist. Maybe you guys will be able to tell me in the comments or something. But it was these piles of businessmen with their briefcases and, you know, office supplies and desks and stuff in this pile. And they were all like they weren't dead. They were just like, they were tired or like sleeping or like passed out, basically, just in these piles. But I guess the message that this artist was trying to bring across was like the culture of like Japanese businessmen and how they work themselves to death. And they don't have any life. They only work, and they work so hard that that was the point they were bringing across. These paintings were huge. They were like, 8 foot by 4 foot, like giant paintings of these, just like so detailed. Like every stroke was like teeniest brush. Like must have taken years to paint one of these. Who knows how long, but really cool pieces that I saw. Those really stood out to me. And then that was when I started to see there's like this whole culture in Japan that, they have their own cultural problems just like we have in America. Like they have their own set of problems.
Yeah.
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 We do have to wrap it up soon, but I do also want to just touch on back to your current trip. You went snowboarding.
Oh, yeah.
We just got back from Studio Morio. I know you've drawn a lot of inspiration from your trips before. Is there anything this trip specifically that inspired you, a moment, or anything you want to talk about from this last 2-3 weeks?
I mean, definitely. I mean, every time I come out here, I just learned something new about Japan that I didn't know before. And, I've seen you're embedding yourself in the Japanese culture more and more and learning more and more about it. So you are sharing a lot of stuff. And I definitely learned some stuff. You were teaching me some words. Like,
do you remember how to say, do you speak English?
Yeah, it's ego deki maska. Ego deki maska.
Yes.
Yes. Ego deki maska.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah. I'm learning. I mean, the culture around snow, and I don't know, I love snow. I mean, that's part of why I moved to Colorado. I mean, the biggest reason was to be in the studio with all you guys. But one of the other big reasons was being by the mountains and being in the snow. So coming to Hokkaido is super inspiring. I mean, the forests in Japan there's something different about it. It feels very sacred, and like you're in a temple when you're riding down through the forest, and you just have a lot of respect for it, and that's how they treat it in Japanese culture. When you're riding in the forest, they don't really, I don't know if they really promote riding in the forest. Some places are actually really strict about how you ride in the forest. Like they make you fill out and get a special pass to ride in through trees, because people get
hurt in there and
Yeah, of course.
can not make it out.
Yeah.
So
Not make it out.
Yeah, that's what I heard happen to Akihiro recently, unfortunately. RIP, R.I.P. He was in the forest and he was alone and maybe fell or something, and I don't know what happened exactly, but yeah, it's dangerous. Tree riding is dangerous, and you are definitely risking it. There's trees. You could hit a tree, you could end up in a tree well. You could, but they're super inspiring at the same time. And I grew up riding trees, and the tree wells out here aren't as bad as they are in the Northwest.
Yeah,
because the trees aren't as big. They're all deciduous trees out here, so that their leaves are all gone. And I don't know. There's something about riding powder in Japan, like I was talking about earlier. Less traffic, less people, and it's just super special. Yeah, and I bring that into my work, I guess. That kind of solitude and spending those moments by yourself, just in this Zen bliss state of riding through trees. It inspires me in some kind of way, like subconsciously, probably.
I think it directly inspires you. I know, you do a lot of skateboarding, a lot of snowboarding. You're an active individual, and I feel like that active lifestyle contributes to your style and your aesthetic. And I'm the old Fuel TV.
Oh my God.
You guys should Google that.
Don't look it up.
Eusheen was skateboarding, did a little skate video and a glass video. And it's always kind of, excuse me, you've always kind of tied the active lifestyle into your work. So I already assumed, just knowing you, that your trip out here and you riding that powder up there was impactful and going to give you the energy and inspiration that you need as an artist to create the work at the level that you want to.
Oh, yeah.
As an artist, I feel it's so important to live.
It fuels you for months after that. It's like you fill up your inspiration tank.
Yeah.
And then
you're probably full right now.
Yeah, the inspiration tank's very high right now. Just like all kinds of things that you see out here, everyday little things you see. Like you'll be at a restaurant and I saw this really cool cup. I was like, damn, I want to make a cup like that. Yeah, or you'll just see things out here. And then, obviously seeing the Japanese guys work at Studio Morio is always super crazy. They keep evolving their techniques and becoming better glass makers, better craftsmen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's super inspiring to watch.
Damn, well, I think that's all the time we have for today, but I really appreciate you stopping by Tokyo Studio Radio. Thank you, Slop, for helping produce and direct everything. And thank you, Eusheen, for everything that you do for the glass community, all the knowledge that you spread, all the baller-ass, dope-ass, clean pieces that you put out. We all appreciate it.
Oh, damn. Thank you, man.
And I look forward to seeing what you make after this trip. And I look forward to seeing you at Wook Show on 420.
Oh, hell yeah. Wook Show.
Colorado. But yeah, thank you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you too. You're going to be out here for a while longer.
I am.
Well, enjoy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good night. And thanks for having me again.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. That's it. We have a question from the producer.
Okay.
So the glass pipe scene is changing. I think still changing.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you expect this culture in the future? And what do you want to do?
Wow, that's a good question. I think that glass is going to keep getting more detailed. And that's the only, I think we're going to maybe get more conceptual with our pieces and have better concepts behind them. And then also, so that part of it's going to evolve because we're a little behind in that. We're really good at the craft, but we're not that good at the conceptual side of it. Elbow's really good, but he also went to Tyler School of Art, so he like has a bit of that background. Not everyone has that, you know, and so me, I rely on my craft a lot. I'm like, I try to make my craft such a high level that people go, that's art. But like, to me, it's like craft. But there is some subliminal kind of subconscious style that I put into pieces when I'm in the right flow. Like I definitely get into a flow state and when I'm creating, and that's like kind of what fuels my work, is like being in that flow state, trying to always stay in that. So that's why board sports are so important to me, because they get you in that flow state. It's getting harder to be in that flow state in this day and age with like, as you get older, you start to see more of the world problems. They start to like, I think when I was younger, I didn't really see a lot of those. And I maybe had a lower stress level. Not that I'm like stressed out or anything, but you know, the world is changing. So to stay in that flow state, we got to keep bumping up another notch, more detail, more focus, more of all of it, I think. And then I'm interested to see where pipes will go. But I mean, with more countries legalizing cannabis, I think that we're going to see a huge growth in everything. So,
yeah, I just want to remind the new glass artist that's coming into the industry, or somebody that's just trying to learn now. Eusheen thought he was too late 23 years ago.
yeah.
So, you're never too late.
Yeah, some more detail, and I think that's kind of where I'm going with it, is just more detail, more time spent, probably more concept, more ideas behind my work. So, yeah.
That was a really good question, Toyo. We should go if he wants to catch last train.
Yeah.
Thank you. WTSR, we out.
We out.
Good job.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.